The Nigerian government is planning the flotation of a $10 billion investment fund that's targeted at the annual billions of remittance inflows from millions of Nigerian workers around the world. And the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment is currently inviting professional fund managers home and abroad to submit proposals to manage the fund when it's established. Joining us for a discussion on this development is economist and public policy analyst Professor Ken Ife is in our Abuja studios. Good evening to you, sir. Professor, good to see you again. What do you make of this? Yeah, great to have you. Great to have you. What do you make of this Diaspora fund?
It's actually been very, very long in coming. We have had one in 2017 for $300 million, and it was oversubscribed. And I remember attending a meeting in the House of Reps, National Assembly, where the Nigerian Diaspora Commission and many diaspora were saying, where is it? Tell us who got the money. And they couldn't even provide the answer. So it sounded more like institutional investors that were packaged for that. But that's history. But look, Rutus, for 42 years I've been in UK. We have been on this issue. Look, when we leave, there's brain drain and there's chain migration. We leave the country more impoverished, less skills set in the country. So you should connect with us. Let's do something that will connect to our tacit knowledge and the exposures and technical competence. And it's been going on and on and on. And even after 2017, look at how long it's taken for us to come back to this same subject matter. I'm glad we are going for 10 billion. We could even have gone for $50 billion because the diaspora have the resources and the capacity. As long as you can fine-tune, World Bank says, go and consult these people very well so that we make sure, and even that instruction should have been given to the expression of interest fund managers. Consult with them. They are partners in this, and then you can get the most out of them.
Now, the details, Professor, are sketchy, but how should this fund be structured? I mean, as a pure government fund or a mix of public and private sector packaging, how do you think this should be put together?
No, there could be various options. In fact, the first one, let's say, for example, one thing is very important. Even if it is government bond, remember, diaspora bond by definition is really about a retail bond that reaches out to the Nigerian diaspora or that country diaspora and their members of their families and all that, and then try to engage them in investment-related activity that are spread across sectors that will appeal to them. All of that kind of stuff. So it's possible that it could be government. It's possible that it could be mixed, government, public, public, private. It's also possible that it could go the other way. It could actually be a special investment vehicle, offshore vehicle that could also return those revenues to the federal government. But whichever one it does, it can be a mixture of some part of it institutional investors who appeal to this, some will be more to the retail investors. But the key thing is to understand the sectors and subsectors that appeal to the diaspora, that would encourage them to invest. And I don't know if you're going to ask that question. Look at, we have more doctors in many parts of the world than what we have, and they are doing quite well. You hear about $26 billion coming into Nigeria. It could be almost twice as much because what you hear is what you see. But there are many that you don't see. So the thing is that those in the health profession will definitely respond if you tell them about insurance, health insurance that will fund first-class, world-class health centers and specialized medical facilities in Nigeria. They will connect to that. Some of them are already coming here to spend a month on voluntary thing. They can come and do the business. And then there's also telemedicine. They don't even physically have to be coming, but they will invest. And many are in education. And when they're in education, you couldn't be having all this shenanigan of people going to Ghana to spend 500 billion in Ghana every. When we have Nigerians that are in education and that can also work with you, and there's online learning, virtual learning, all kinds of things that we can work with. Then you look at technology, the digital economy. That is the most persuasive because if you look at India, the Indian professionals are in Silicon Valley and everywhere, and they actually work with Indians to take Indian investors in that ICT space back to India. But in Nigeria, we are so averse to this soft power concept. Oh, you don't want them to come here and all this. The soft power is what frightens them. I don't know whether that should be the case. We want to invest. Or is it housing? The very first priority is to build a home for somewhere in Nigeria. But you've got to have a housing scheme that appeals to them in various segments, in various areas. So the digital one is the most persuasive. And look, this man was asked, Modi was asked, who runs the world? Who governs the world? You know what he said? He said he doesn't know, but he knows that the first 100 companies, the biggest 100 companies in the world are run by Indians. And then I went and checked it out. I found that most of the CEOs are replaced are Indians. The one current are Indians. The ones next to them are Indians. Check it, Apple, Microsoft, and then check all of them. They can only do this because they have business process outsourcing in India, developed into a huge industry. They are they went into Silicon, they're now bringing them investors. Nigerians don't even feel comfortable bringing investors into Nigeria. So what happens is that those investors who think that they can come with a briefcase and immediately go to the presidency to see the president and all of that will be disappointed, because when they deal with some of the local people that are not, they swindle them. But when you work with Nigerians that are established and doing well and come with them as a partner to do this business, then you will see the difference. The difference is that when you come with a business and you develop good business in Nigeria for them, you raise your profile in whatever UK or America, the next thing you get promoted, you now become managing director because you're delivering results for these companies. But that's not the case. The mutual suspicion here is unbelievable. And we're just punching below our potential.
Thank you so much for that, Professor. And it's very interesting that you mentioned India. We've got a very big fan of the India economy right here in our Arise News studio. So that's a point very well made, sir. But I did want to ask you, Professor, about some of these sectors. And you sound very bullish, you sound very optimistic. But if we take real estate, right? Professor, the cost of buildings, inflation has pushed them up. The housing deficits, some say it's 17 million. I spoke with a research firm that says it's 35 million or even more. We import so many of the items we used to build. I mean, if you look at the sectors that you think this fund could invest in, do you think we can realistically make a return on a sector like in real estate, even with the challenges and the costs, to be able to pay back those diaspora Nigerians that are putting their money in there?
But what do you mean by paying back? If I have houses in America that were almost $500,000, that same house, I could build it here with $200,000. So why do I want to pay back? Where is it different? Because there's a huge margin. The dollar has still retained this value, but the naira that is collapsing. So you're buying a lot more naira to deliver this. But the fact of the matter that there are some that may want to invest in some other sectors, like, okay, look at tech hubs. What would you say about tech hubs? The six of the 7 tech hubs in Africa are from Nigeria. The highest investment in tech hubs is from Nigeria, over almost 40%, compared to other countries. Then what is name the thing? Anything? And if you look at number, Nigeria is number 3 in digital payments. And we're moving rapidly. Government even has projected about 2 trillion number of transactions. But we're number 3. 4 years ago, we were number 6, ahead of America and Brazil. So, with the technology is here, and look at the revenue potential. Now, the technology is giving us about 5% of the GDP and about 18% of the, 9% of the growth rate, GDP growth rate. And the financial sector, that is finance and insurance, is giving about 18% GDP growth rate, and also 10% of the 5% of the GDP contribution. While the ICT sector is giving about 16% of the GDP contribution. But when you compound these two, you find that both of them account for 27.8% of our GDP. So I kept on advising government, look for a proxy that reflects the progress of these two. And the proxy is the transactions. Payments on transactions, target that, put it in the fiscal strategy, so that you are not only using oil oil price and volume, but you're also using another proxy, and that gives you revenue. So it gives, and then get a third proxy on composite solid mineral. So that, because we don't have one single solid mineral that you use composite, take about 5, and then take a proxy of it, and then put it there so that you can drive the entire economy. People will now work to target. Government is getting that revenue. Each time you make one transfer, see how much money government charges you. And we are giving the highest return on that.
Okay. And in fact, the telco operators are saying those charges should possibly go up because of the cost of doing business. But Professor, should this fund be aligned with the sovereign? We have the Sovereign Investment Authority, the NSIA. So there's also the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. I mean, there seem to be other entities that have been set up to try to invest our funds. So, how do you think that works with what is already on ground?
Well, the National Sovereign Investment Authority can actually provide the kind of guarantee that is required for this, just as federal government can provide the guarantees. But they also are strong players in this area, so they will help the market, bring a much more dynamic and more entrepreneurial program around this. Now, the one of Murphy is very important, because when you talk about, Murphy now has 2 components, asset management and then investment. In the diaspora, in London, I think there was a time we had about 8 buildings belonging to government somewhere in London and all that. Some of these government assets in all over the world can be put out for refurbishment, for conversion to the black accommodation. There's so much investment. We were derelict. And that's why you find girlfriends of people or all kinds of people using those properties and leaving them in that sorry state. Then, of course, government has a lot of properties, in thousands in the country. And if the diaspora investors wants to go for hospital or go for anything that is closer to his professional line, they will look at that government asset. And they would want to target it. So we have a lot more assets that they can be interested in divesting or bringing companies along with them to come and invest. So it is about studying this and then finding out where our interest. Look at import-export. Nigeria produces 71% of world yam production, 42 million metric tons. Ghana produces only about 4%. But Ghana works very closely with the Ghanaian diaspora, and they export 70% of yams in UK, Europe, and America. We don't. We try anything, they probably, all kinds of things going on with our stuff. And the same thing with other products. When you want to buy Gary from Nigeria, where in other times, we just go to Munede in a data, they put Gary, they pour different tint, different colors in the bag. We go and look at Ghana, they will bring 20 ship load, container load, all exactly coming from one factory. So what is going on? What's going on? Why can't we just get, and it's the diaspora, it's their diaspora. And you remember when the Economic Partnership Agreement, EU Economic Partnership Agreement, we were asked to initialize it. Nigeria refused. Ghana diaspora mounted huge pressure on their government because they say if you don't do it, they will destroy our business. They immediately signed with Cote d'Ivoire. So we have to connect with our people. We have 17 million Nigerians in the diaspora. That's what some statistics say. And look, can you imagine that? 20 years ago, World Bank said that the African diaspora contribute $184,000 to the economy of the West. Can you imagine what that is? That means $3.128 trillion. Even if it is 50% of that population that is contributing, that's $1.1 trillion. So we're talking about intensifying, using the resource that you have, using them to best effect to provide import and import opportunity and quality assurance across the whole spectrum. And then you get Nigerians, support them in having retail shops all over the place because there's an organized import activity. And then in any sector, in every sector, how about those who want to retire? What are they going to retire to? If they're involved in some business, they'll retire to Nigeria and then make sure they run the business.
Right. Look, Professor Ken Ife, public policy analyst, economist, you always bring passion when talking about Nigeria's investment prospects and the promise. We thank you so much for joining us to talk about this bond, and we await more details from the government. Thank you so much, Professor.